Live from a bunker in the heart of the Ozarks, a podcast that's as irresistible as a full bag of onions. It's SIFT Pop. Welcome to SIFT Pop Weekly, streaming live most weekends or available to download later in your podcast feed, unless, of course, you're a patron.
Patrons get perks.
Patrons get those perks.
My wife.
I'm your host, Aaron Dicer, and no one turns down his wings. It's Andrew Ormsby, ladies and gentlemen. And
ahoy!
Each week we will chat about movies, television, and whatever else from the pop culture universe is on our minds. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. It's good to see you, man.
Yeah.
I look forward to this each week. Hopefully you do as well. If you're listening on the audio podcast and you want to join us by video, we do live stream this every Sunday afternoon at about 1:30. You can follow the SIFT Pop YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/SIFTPop, or the Twitch, which is my name, Aaron Dicer. So twitch.tv/Aaron Dicer. Is that the way? Okay,
you did it, buddy.
You know, I have to start getting better at that, because apparently we passed some sort of milestone on Twitch where we are now an affiliate of Twitch. So you can now subscribe and throw little bits at us or whatever. I'm not even sure how all that works. I need to educate myself on the Twitchverse.
I never really was all that much on Twitch. I was just YouTube primarily back in my day. So.
Yeah, so you can check us out there. Also, facebook.com/SIFTPop. It streams there as well. Twitter, if you follow my Twitter, it will stream there too. We are all over the place, and thankful that you are joining us wherever you tune in, and so thankful that we get to do this each week. Andrew, I'm ready to get into it. We've got a couple good movies this week. I mean, by good, I mean fun to talk about, at least. I don't want to give away whether we actually think they're good movies or not yet. But in addition to that, we're going to talk about the best ever movies that have witches in them for our best ever challenge. And of course, we'll do our buried treasure as well. But let's go ahead and get into it. First, we're going to talk about the witches. In late 1967, something just crashed on my computer. Hold on. Phil, remember to cut this out. There it is. In late 1967, a young orphan boy goes to live with his loving grandma in the rural Alabama town of Demopolis. As the boy and his grandmother encounter some deceptively glamorous but thoroughly diabolical witches, she wisely whisks him away to a seaside resort. Regrettably, they arrive at precisely the same time that the world's Grand High Witch has gathered her fellow cronies from around the globe to carry out her nefarious plans. This, of course, is based on the Roald Dahl book of the same name. There was, I think, 30 years ago, a movie that came out based on that book.
Yeah, the Angelica Houston one.
Yes. I remember really enjoying that movie when it came out, because I really enjoy this book. I think it might be my favorite Roald Dahl book, which is really strange. Most people wouldn't say that. You'd probably get like James and the Giant Peach or maybe some of the others, but I really dig something about the universe, the way this universe sees the witches. So this has always been one of my favorites to come from his brain. This time we've got Anne Hathaway, Octavia Spencer, Stanley Tucci, and some others bringing it to us. What do you think, Andrew? Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay?
I didn't like it, but it wasn't for me. Like, it wasn't made for me. It's a kid's movie. So a creepy kid's movie, but so was the Angelica Houston one, so...
Yeah,
that's just the vibe you get from ROALD. So
you're in the didn't like it
category? Didn't like it. Yeah.
I'm in the liked it. In fact, I may even say really liked it. Now, I already admitted I'm kind of I guess predisposed maybe to like it because I like the material so much, and so I'm probably predisposed to focus on the good parts of the film, according to me. But I really had a good time with this, and I think the two things that elevate this for me above the 1990 version, which was also really good, and Angelica Houston was great, but the two things that elevate it for me are, number one, Anne Hathaway's performance, which we can talk about. Good. I'm glad you liked it too. I thought she was so game for whatever this movie was going to be. Like, she was on board, and you can tell she bought in to this part, and she is so good in it. And then the other thing is the level of special effects have increased so much in the last 30 years that what they're able to do with the visualization of these creatures, these witches, and the visualization of the mice and those kind of things, it's just so much better that I just found myself really enjoying what was going on with the movie. So those are kind of my primary things. You think the Hathaway performance is worth talking about too?
Yeah. Oh, it's really good. I think it's the one saving grace for the film. That like
Yeah.
really elevates it because whenever she was on screen, that's whenever I was actually, engaged and I wanted to see what she was going to do next because she is so like you said, she just embraces this role. Like, if you want me to be a crazy evil witch, I'll be a crazy evil witch. I'm not going to try and, hold back to like save grace. Like, sometimes you'll get an actor or an actress will be like, no, I'm a prestigious actor. I don't need to do, any silly stuff like that. I guarantee you every single person in this movie had fun making this movie.
Yeah, right?
And you feel that.
Yeah, you can definitely feel there's a lot of love going on here. And so I think that kind of carried me through. I think that was kind of, for me, as somebody who loves the material, what I enjoyed most about, what was going on. What are some other things you wanna chat about?
I actually do like the, I guess you could say the visualization of what witches look like in this one. It's kind of like the 90s version, but this one definitely has its own take on, like the visualization of a witch. Like it's more serpentine, I guess you could say, as opposed to, a classic, long-nosed, cliched witch,
Mm-hmm.
and no, I always like it whenever a movie is willing to try and make it make something of it its own, and I think that that's what this movie did really well.
Yeah, I agree. I also really enjoyed the voice performances of the people that we don't see, like Kristen Chenoweth. I thought did a great job. Chris Rock, delivers a voice performance here, and I thought it worked surprisingly. I wasn't expecting it to work, but it somehow kind of does.
I just it's not the problem with it is I can't listen to it and go, okay, that's a character. That's a character in the movie. I just keep going, that's Chris Rock.
Ah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
Chris.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that was it for me. Like I, I was like, I can't buy into the story because this whole time I'm just thinking of Chris Rock doing all of his best stand-up bits, so I'm not really engaged in the movie. And it starts off with Chris Rock, so how am I supposed to get?
No, that's a good question. Stanley Tucci also hanging out in this movie, which I always
For a little
enjoy
bit, yeah.
a little bit of Tucci. He's not getting a ton of screen time, but you've got Anne Hathaway and Stanley Tucci. You're basically a Meryl Streep away from some Devil Wears Prada. So
Yeah.
we're getting there. We're getting
What'd
there.
you think of Octavia Spencer?
I thought she was great. She wasn't the standout performance for me, but I think she is consistent, and I really do think she's great in this movie. I just think Anne Hathaway's performance is going to pretty much overshadow anything
Yeah.
anybody else is doing, and that's by design. Like that character is designed to chew the scenery in that way, and so I think that makes it okay.
Mm-hmm. So
What
you really liked it. Do you have
I did.
anything, yeah, that you
Uh,
didn't appreciate or you would have changed?
No, not a lot. There is an element to the storytelling in this movie that felt to me a little rushed. Now, that's strange to say because usually that's a good thing when something can be, keep the momentum going and be tight. When I complain about pace, it's not usually that something's, too fast. But for me, I kind of felt like there were times I was starting to live in a moment or live in a part of the story, and it was just on to the next thing really, really fast. And this is a universe that I enjoy understanding and exploring. And so that was really the only thing that I remember just thinking, oh, I wasn't done with, the scene with all of them in the ballroom, or I wasn't done with, whatever the scene might be. And so I do remember having that feeling and probably being the only, real negative I have.
Yeah.
What about you?
I think my biggest negative is a lack of try or a lack of ability to really invest in the main characters. Like you look at his other books like Charlie and Chocolate Factory, Matilda, James and the Giant Peach you mentioned. I'm able to live vicariously through those other characters pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
It for some reason I just couldn't buy into this one as much. I don't know if it's the source material or if it's the acting or what. Or maybe because I saw all those other Rolled movies when I was a kid. I never saw the Angelica Houston one. So
Oh, okay.
I've never read the book. So this is my first induction into the witches.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's I don't know if it's just something I would have had to have appreciated as a kid, or if it's just not a movie for me. I don't know.
I will say, my guess is that a lot of what you're hearing from me is because I liked it as a kid, the book, and then the movie as more of like a teenager when the movie came out. But again, even as a teenager when the movie came out, it was more like, I love this book growing up. This is so cool to see,
Yeah.
Look at them, they don't have any toes. Look at them, they don't have any toes. It's just like in the book. So there is that element of nostalgia for me that I'm sure is shading my thoughts on the movie. So if you haven't had the experience of reading the book or maybe seeing the 1990 movie, then you might fall more in line with what Andrew's saying. It might be a difficult way into this universe. But yeah, all that stuff that you're seeing in this movie, this is the other thing I would say. It's very faithful to the book. In fact,
Oh, that's good.
even more faithful to the book than the 1990 version. The 1990 version changed a few things, and this one kind of brought some of those back. So another reason I really enjoyed this one, and probably more than the 1990 version. So yeah,
Very good.
the only other thing I'd like to address is you had mentioned that it is a kids movie, that it feels like a kids movie.
I said it's a creepy kids movie.
Yeah, yeah. This is one of the other things that I love about this is I think you're right, and I think that is well worth saying to somebody who might want to fire this up. By the way, we haven't mentioned this is on HBO Max, and I can't remember who produced it and if they sold it to HBO or if it was Warner already. None of that really matters for you because you'll just, if you've got HBO Max, you can fire it up and watch the movie. It's just an interesting world where we lived in because this was very much supposed to be in theaters, and they decided to find what they could, the money that they could from, a streaming service to, kind of make that work. And that's going to happen more and more as we kind of continue through this. It's just a very interesting time, but did want to mention it was on HBO Max for you. So
It does say Max Original, but like you said, that doesn't really mean that they're the actual producer.
See,
It
because
says
they can
Warner
say
Bros.
that.
It says Warner Brothers. So
Okay. Well, then it was in house. Then The Witches was
Yeah.
always in house, and they were able just to put it on. You'll see with some others. There's been news, and by the way, whatever point I was originally making has left my brain. So we're just going to talk about this for a second.
we were talking about where to see it originally. We said you can only see it on HBO Max.
Yeah, and there's going to be more and more news of some of these big releases. You're hearing a lot of buzz about the James Bond movie possibly selling to a streaming service for like $400 million. Like the idea that if they can get a decent return and kind of make their money back through a sale to a streaming service like Netflix or Hulu or whoever, that I think you're going to start seeing that as an option more and more for these companies. Now, of course, they can keep it in house too because everybody has their own streaming service, and use it to boost subs. And something like 007 or something like a Marvel movie. That if one of those dominoes falls, I think that's the tipping point, right? Like that has to be the tipping point on this whole thing. So
like a Star Wars, a Marvel movie, James Bond. Yeah.
yeah.
It's going to be an interesting. I think there is going to be at least one to do. I guess they would say like a proof of concept. Like, can we get a return on investment if we just put it all on a streaming service?
Or at least some return on our investment. They may have already given up on the idea because let's say theaters open, here. I mean, let's not get too much into pandemic talk on this pop culture podcast, but it looks like we're going into the winter. Viruses always, do more damage during the winter. Colder temperatures, are supposedly good for viruses. So if theaters open in spring, which would be the next time that makes sense for the industry anyway, they want to be open for next summer's blockbuster season, right? And try to, even if it opens next summer, there's still factors like, are people going to be ready after a year and a half of not going to the theater to feel comfortable in a theater? You know, how many people are going to be ready? And even, you know, how long does that process last before movies come to theaters and make $400 million? You know, Tenet was kind of a one that came out, and it, I think, ended up making like 60 to 80 in the US, and maybe 150, 200. Should look that stuff up rather than just saying numbers, but it's close to that worldwide. And people are like, ugh, if a big movie can't make that much. So yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting to see how kind of how all this shakes out. But I think I remember the original point I was making about the this being a kids movie, which you mentioned. Yes, this is absolutely a kids movie, and I think that's worth paying attention to. Because this is not necessarily a movie that is designed for you know, a more mature audience, but at the same time, it is a movie that's not afraid to deal with mature themes. And one of the things I always loved about this book, and we probably won't do a spoiler on this just because you know, there's not a ton to spoil, and also it's a, you know, a property that's been around a while, but there is a part of this movie where things that go quote unquote wrong for somebody are never righted. And that was a key part of the book. I remember as a kid being like, whoa, that's it. Because usually in especially kids content, if something goes wrong, it will be corrected. You know, that's almost the goal of the movie. The resolution of the movie is to correct that. And in this movie, it's in this source material, it's never corrected. And it's one of my favorite things about this material, because it speaks to this idea that, you know what, sometimes things go wrong and there are consequences that don't end. And that's life. That's reality, right? So yeah, I've always appreciated that about this material, and was glad to see it here as well. So
yeah, I was curious if that was going to be like, you know, faithful, because that did stick out to me. I'm like, oh, so we're never going to come back to that, and they're just going to accept it now. It's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah,
I'm glad at least one of us has, you know, read the source material and seen the Angelica Houston one.
This is my chance to be like you are when we do a Stephen King movie. It's like my one opportunity to be like, you know, or a comic book movie or any other, you know, the material. Usually it's Andrew like, well, I've read, you know, all the issues of the New Mutants, and this really, you know, or whatever the case may be. But it's my turn now. It's my turn now.
You get to be the snob. Like, well, actually, let me tell you.
Yes, exactly. That's what I've been looking forward to very much, is the snobbery of the whole thing.
Feels good, doesn't it?
It does. It feels great to be better than other people because of what you know. Yes, it's a great feeling. Welcome to Everything Wrong with Modern Fandom. Okay, so we are going to move on, but before we do, I would say this is a recommend for me. I've given my caveats. You know that I'm a little biased on this. Andrew, a little less of a recommend for you, which I think is important.
Kids might enjoy it. So if you want to watch a movie with your kids, I'm sure you'll have fun. Like, even seeing them laugh and giggle, you know, that'd be worth it.
And if you do happen to check it out, even without your kids or kids that you hang out with, and that sounds a little weird. I should say, like, you know, nephews, nieces, you know, kids in your life.
I was gonna let that slide, but you're the one that lingered on it. So
even if you check it out without any children in the room, I still think you may enjoy at least Anne Hathaway's performance and kind of the fun of that character, if nothing else. So that'll be good. All right, let's move on. Let's go ahead and talk about Borat, subsequent movie film. Released from prison for bringing shame to his country, Kazakh funny man Borat risks life and limb when he returns to America with his 15-year-old daughter. This was kind of a surprise sequel. It comes to us on Amazon Prime. And they're the ones that have ended up with it. And I think they have the first movie available on Prime as well. And you'll see a lot of these streaming companies do that. You know, recently when Trial of the Chicago 7 came to Netflix, whole bunch of Sorkin stuff ended up on Netflix, like Moneyball and those kind of things. So it's a good strategy. Like to see it.
Yeah.
So Borat, subsequent movie film, he comes to us right before the election as very much a political piece, I think in a lot of ways. And there was a lot of that in the first one as well. But it's still Sacha Baron Cohen's, what would you say? Kind of, I don't know. It's not
mockumentary.
Yeah, but it's kind of weird, right? Because
there's an actual
there's supposed real things going on, so it's I don't know. It's kind of its own thing. So anyhow, what did you think? Did you love it, like it, dislike it, hate it, or was it just okay?
I'm gonna go with okay, low side of okay.
Low side of okay. I think I'm going to end up right down the middle on this one. Middle of okay. At times, I think high side of okay when I think about some of the things I love about it. At times, low side of okay when I think about some of the things I hate about it. He's kind of delivering that in these kind of movies, right? That love it, hate it kind of thing. And so I think that is going to be a lot of people's experience. I'll let you go first on this one. What are some of your general thoughts, positive or negative?
I think that one thing that the original film did that I appreciated that this one missed on was that it didn't hold punches from either side. If you're talking about this from a political standpoint, the first Borat movie said, here's all the silly stuff going on with the left. Here's all the silly stuff going on with the right. And just showing like there's idiots on both sides, you know? I think this one is very party centric. Like this one is all about making fun of the right. And it doesn't really, you know, give its just deserves to the other side as well to make it seem fair. And it's his movie. He doesn't have to make it seem fair, but it just made it more accessible and it didn't seem like a comedic podium to make fun of whoever you want of the party you don't agree with. But there are parts of this movie that are funny. I should say this, actually. This should have been the first thing I said, sorry. And it's the fact that and Aaron knows this, I'm not really a fan of cringe or uncomfortable humor.
Right.
Like, you know, if the goal is to make either me uncomfortable or somebody else uncomfortable, then I kind of live vicariously through them. I'm like, yeah, this is uncomfortable. And some people love that feeling of like, oh, I can't believe he's saying this or doing this, but because they live through the pranker, I guess you could say, for a lack of a better term.
A prankster vibe. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And I guess I just live more through the prank-y is who I wish I could live through the pranker. They seem like they're having a great time. But no, like there's scenes in this movie where they're just trying to intentionally make somebody uncomfortable. And I'm like, yeah, I would be uncomfortable. As opposed to, yeah, let's get him.
It is my least favorite parts of this movie are the times when I felt like they were really stretching to get something out of a real person. And a person who there were 2 or 3 moments where I felt like the mark, we'll just call him a mark. It's like a con man kind of a thing, where the mark felt like they were handling it fine, but they just kept pushing, and because they need the material, they need the response, and you can do a lot with editing. And I wondered this about the first one. I wonder it about this one. You really wish to understand fully what they experienced and how much is manufactured versus how much is, legitimate. Now, there are things that happen and things that are said that even just them happening or them being said is enough that you go, what? Like those moments, I'm not talking about those moments. I'm talking about the moments where, there could be, manipulation or a scene where the person seems to be handling it fine, even in this strange circumstance. In fact, there were moments in this movie where I felt like the person who was the mark actually came off really well. There was a specific moment, and I believe maybe a synagogue, possibly, with some Jewish women, where I mean, he's doing some of the most vilely anti, Semite, kind of stuff that you can do. Like the character is, I should say, the character is, and they are so compassionate and loving and engaged in whatever. Now, a couple things could be going on. They could know it's all a silly joke, possibly. But to me, it felt more like that was just them. They wanted to be human to this other person, no matter what was going on with them. You know what I mean? Like there is almost an element where I'm like kind of proud of some of these people, where it's like, way to treat somebody as a human being, even when they're being that ridiculous and stupid, which that's kind of cool, I guess.
Yeah.
So
another aspect of that is you see a bunch of people just being affable. They're just like, it's 2020 or 2019, whenever this was filmed. They're like, this might as well happen, and they just go with it because they're like,
right.
there's too much craziness going on for me to, think that this is anything out of the norm at the moment.
Right.
Like, I guess you could say there's a guy that works for, I guess, UPS. He just goes with it. He's like, yeah, sure, why not?
Right. That's
and
the
there's
kind
a
of stuff
bunch
I'm
of those
talking about.
characters.
Yeah. Where it's this thing where it's like, you don't know how much of that is somebody knowing it's a joke, knowing it's, something strange, not thinking it's a real thing, and just going, hey, it's my chance to be an actor, and I'm going to play along like I'm, in the movie too, or, like, you don't know how much of it is that, how much of it comes from a real place, how much of it is manufactured. So that element of it for me kind of hits both sides, where I'm just like, number one, I don't know what to trust about that idea, that prankster nature of the movie, and number two, I don't know that I enjoy the prankster nature of it anyway. Like that's not why I'm interested in seeing it. So yeah, I think we're kind of in the same boat on that. That those are the huge negatives come to me from that prankster vibe. And if what you love about these movies is him making people uncomfortable and him making people say things you can't believe they said, well, how much of that is real? I just don't know,
Yeah.
So I even if I did like that, I would come away from it going, I don't know, So
yeah. There are two moments in this movie. One takes place at a debutante ball, and one takes place at a plastic surgery office, where somebody says something that is so shockingly vile, and they're supposed to be real people saying these things, that it just took me aback, and I didn't even know what was happening in the scene because I couldn't move past what the person had just said,
Right. And they are so, and I know exactly what you're talking about, and they are looks into the worst of human nature in those moments. And I guess you don't know, but you have to assume that the only reason they could even include them in the movie is because they got rights ahead of time. Like they had people sign and say, hey, we're going to do a recording here, and we have rights to sign your name, because they're not I can't imagine they're getting those people's permission after they said that. You know what I mean?
Gosh, yeah.
So, and I could be wrong, but
and props to Sasha and I forget the young woman's name, but for being able to Maria to not be to break out of character and be like, "Whoa, did you really just say that?" But they went with the punches, and they're just like, hey, yeah, we'll just go along with what they're saying and smile and nod and, stay in character. So kudos to them for those two things I'm thinking in particular. That I'm like, wow, the fact that you stayed in character and that you didn't freeze for a moment.
You bring me literally to my favorite thing about this whole process. It's not the pranking. It's the performances. It's the art. It's the improvisation of it. It's the ability to stay in character, to fully embrace a character in a moment where you can keep doing it. And we've seen Sasha do this so many times. He's incredible at this. And to see him bring along Maria Bakalova, I believe is her name, and for her to kind of live up to him in a lot of these scenes is really impressive. And I was, if anything, most impressed with her, primarily because I've seen Sasha do this before.
Yeah.
But to see somebody else be game for it and be able to do it and pull it off, it's really inspiring. I mean, it was inspiring is the wrong word.
Somebody
really
as young as her go toe to toe with him, like somebody that we would consider like one of the elites of improv and stuff like that. For her to go toe to toe with him is really impressive.
I believe, just so we're clear, not saying this isn't young, but she is 24. The actress is actually 24 years old.
In the movie, she's portrayed as a 15-year-old, but she is 24 in real life. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that's the case. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Because there's a scene towards the end of the movie that is incredibly prevalent and very much talked about right now in the
scene.
Yeah, you know the
if
scene.
You're paying attention at all, you know the scene. Yeah.
Yeah. Which honestly, I think we should do a SIFT spoil on this movie. Just that's what I'm thinking, to talk about certain things in this and what we think what were actually happening and stuff.
Sure, we can do that. We can do a SIFT spoil on Borat's subsequent movie film. We will do a Borat subsequent podcast for that. We will do a SIFT spoil on that.
Very nice.
Any other non-spoiler things that you kind of want to talk about with this one?
I like the fact that there's at least 2 or 3 people in this that made me happy, that I was like, okay, they're not just showing all of the awfulness of humanity. There's some good people. You mentioned the ladies in the synagogue. There's also a without spoilers, I'll just call her a babysitter in this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, she's great. I like her. I wish she could have been a babysitter whenever I was young. She's great. Yeah. Just people like that give you hope.
Right, and I do wonder, you talk about how this is much more of a targeted at one side of the aisle, so to speak.
Yeah.
Which I agree with you. But I do wonder if he's purposefully including those kind of things to say this is actually the beauty of people who may technically be on the other side of, or in middle America or whatever the case may be, that there's the beauty of humanity is in these people, even as we see the ugliness of humanity and kind of what's being done with these other people. I wonder if that's intentional, and maybe that's his way of balancing it out this time. I don't know, because you're right. The first one was very much just, I'm going to use this outsider character to show how our political process is silly and ridiculous and, all of those things. And it wasn't, specifically necessarily targeted. And this one, I think, is.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you think this movie is going to age well? And what I mean by that is there's a lot of references in this movie that are very much of right now, that I don't know if people, 5 or 6 years down the line will remember these references for the time.
I think that's going to depend on how you feel about that. Will probably depend on how, if you feel that the moment we're going through is a big, world-changing moment where it's like we'll remember this moment forever. Because if the COVID thing is a singular moment of time, and by singular I mean a window of time, obviously, that we all experience something and it sticks in our general consciousness, then I think this movie's fine, because a lot of what you're talking about deals with the pandemic specifically, and in the Trump presidency specifically. But yeah, I think I'm on the side of believing that will be understood and make sense to people 40 years from now or whatever. Because you look at something that happened almost 100 years from now, now, I guess technically 80 years ago, I should say, like World War II, right? Mm-hmm. That was such a global event, world-changing thing, that we can watch a World War II movie and understand, kind of what happened, even with specific references, those kind of things. So if it really is that kind of event that we're experiencing, and some of that's only in hindsight that we can really know that, then yeah, I think people even 40, 80, 100 years from now will understand.
Yeah. So, hopefully there's more extremely well-placed content out there that they're not having to go back and watch Borat 2 80 years from now just to get a laugh.
Yeah, do you think people watch this? Yes, absolutely people watch this to get a laugh. That is probably true.
I was talking to my brother-in-law yesterday, and he was talking about how much he watched the first Borat movie. He just goes back and watches it over and over again just to get a laugh, and that he was excited to watch this one. So there are people who watch this just to get a laugh, because
Hmm.
besides the cringe humor, there's also shock humor in this, and
Yeah, lots of penises. That's always a
yeah,
Borat staple. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So yeah. So yeah, it is definitely very similar to the first in that way. As far as if you were wondering. But
yeah.
yeah. What do you
Uh,
think? What do you think? Recommend?
if you like the first one, you'll like this one. If you didn't like the first one, they're not changing anything for you to make you like appreciate this one more. So I guess that would be my one thing. So yeah, I guess I could recommend it if you like the first one.
I'm going to recommend it for one reason. It's one of my favorite things about the movie, and we haven't talked about it yet. I think this movie is supremely more well plotted than the first one. I think there is a very interesting story thing that happens towards the end of this movie that I didn't see coming, and it kind of gives the movie a cohesive perspective on the world, and
Yeah,
I was not ready for it, and I was just like, oh, that's interesting, nicely done, kind of laid that one right under my nose there, and I didn't even notice it. So won't give that away until the SIFT spoil, but I do think for me it gave this movie a level up for me, because then I was like, oh, it's more than just cringe humor, it's more than, like, it actually did a movie thing.
yeah. It's
Like,
trying to
it
say
actually
something. There is a
yeah, it
message
actually
here,
told a story,
and it wasn't
yeah.
even really a political message. It was just a
No.
yeah,
Yeah, totally. And part of that also has to do with there are only 3 credits in this movie, and the third credit is someone playing themselves, and
yeah,
that cracked me up as well. But don't want to spoil that either.
yeah.
So yeah, there you go. Borat's subsequent movie film is on Amazon Prime right now, and you can certainly check it out if you like. Before we head on to the best ever challenge, just take a second to thank our amazing supporters and SIFT Pop members on Patreon. You make this show happen. We really appreciate you and everything that you do. If you're curious about the membership, the different levels, the different perks, just go hit it up at Patreon. Patreon.com/SIFTPOP. Support starts at $3 a month. And you can check everything else that's involved there. We recorded our favorite Halloween movies, both scary and silly, last week, and we mentioned that last week, and then technology stole it from us. So we re-recorded it, and if you are a SIFT Pop member, it will be in your feed this week. Fingers crossed. If not, it's just cursed, and it'll never be there. But we like to do that. Do those extra little podcasts for you. You get your own personal podcast feed, all sorts of fun stuff. So we do appreciate it. All right, let's move on to the best ever challenge. We're going with best ever movies that have witches in them as a primary part of the plot. We will go from number 5 to number 1. Before we get into this, I do want to say I have been glancing at the chat. Some people on Twitch mentioning, like, giving us bits. Thank you. That's amazing. I don't 100% know what that means, but that is a support that we really do appreciate. And
like
then
Bitcoin.
saying, I don't think it'd be nice if it was Bitcoin. Bitcoin's going up right now, man. Like, I don't know if you're aware of the
I
markets,
keep track of all that stuff.
Actually, I have a little bit of Bitcoin, just a little bit. You might as well, right? Just have a little bit. So yes. So anyways, if you are giving us bits, apparently we don't have it set up to show on the screen when, like, bits are given. I'm not sure if that's something we can do, will do, whatever the case. I'm not sure if that's internal to Twitch or we'd have to do it externally on the show. Whatever the case may be, thank you. We really do appreciate that and that support. So I appreciate it very much. So let's go into this best ever challenge. Best ever movies with witches. We'll start at number 5, Andrew. What do you got?
The Vivitch.
The Vivitch. I didn't think you liked this. Maybe it's just me.
Yeah. I don't love it, but I like it. I like it, and I also appreciate how authentic it's trying to be with, as far as, like, the way people spoke, the dialogue, the accents. It seems so real, and I think that's why it works. Because if they spoke with, like, I guess you could say a modern tongue, like, I don't think this movie would work as well as it does. But the wardrobe, the costuming, and it took something from another witch movie that you may have on your list. I don't know, where not really showing much at all, if anything, really, adds to the suspense of it all.
Sure.
And I really like the cinematography in this. I think Anya Taylor-Joy is great. This is the first movie I ever saw her in, and yeah, I like The Witch. I don't love it, but I like it.
I don't. I very much dislike this movie. It is one of the few movies that I came away from going, "What a waste of my time." It didn't say anything to me. It didn't mean anything to me. It didn't entertain me in any way. I just found it all kind of dark and pointless. But that's just me. We all have our experiences, and I do not begrudge you enjoying The Vavitch.
Yeah.
At all. All right, I'll go with my number 5.
What you got?
I got the Blair Witch Project.
That was the one I was talking about with, not really showing much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think or anything at all.
I think it's always worth mentioning. It's one of those movies where you watch it and you go, similar to the Sacha Baron Cohen stuff, right? Where you go, man, well done, to do a movie like that and for these people to pull that off and be able for it to feel so authentic and to feel so real. And a lot of it has to do with the way it was produced, the way it was shot, the way it was marketed. Certainly was a turning point, or maybe not even a turning point, maybe just a single point in movies where you were able to do this because, once the internet kind of became more of a main thing, it's impossible to pull the wool over people's eyes like that.
Yeah.
And people were given this VHS tape ahead of the movie's release that then passed to other people, and it became like this underground thing. Like, do you know this is a real thing? Like, they kept the actors.
People thought it was real.
Oh, of course, people, because they kept the actors and actresses' name off of IMDb. I think maybe one of them was on there, but it said deceased or something like that, or so like they made sure that it, any crumbs that were out there kind of led to this being a real thing, and people believed it. And I just don't think you could do that anymore. It's a really interesting watch as well. So I definitely wanted to mention it at number 5.
Yeah. If you get nauseous from shaky cam, then viewer beware.
Fair enough. Good point.
Moving on from 4 on up, they're all movies in my top 100 movies of all time. I did not realize I had that many witch movies in my top 100, but
you don't know till you start looking.
Yep. Number 4, I got Big Fish.
Oh, I had forgotten there was a witch in Big Fish.
Yeah. Helena Bonham Carter.
Sure.
Is the witch in that.
Most movies.
Yeah, really. Yeah, any movie that she's in, you can just imagine.
Just assume, even if it's not mentioned, that she's a witch. It's just that life.
I love this movie so much. I think that the story of it all, the metaphor of a father leaving a legacy for his son to live up to. I think Ewan McGregor is great in this. I do not like Tim Burton movies. I really don't. But this one is something special, and it's different from any other movie that he's made, I think. Yes, there's a fantastical element to it, but I think that the story of it all stands so much above the ridiculousness that you see in a lot of his movies that this one is just beautiful. It's heartwarming, it's emotional. I love it. I really do. It's great.
It is one of my favorites as well. It might have edged the Blair Witch Project out of number 5 if I had thought about it. I did a rewatch recently, and it did not increase my perspective on this movie, but it didn't really decrease it either. I think it's just a really good movie, and so I think it's well worth mentioning. At number 4 for you. All right, my number 4 is Into the Woods, the musical. I really enjoyed this. This movie kind of came and went, and, it was fun that year to watch it and sing the songs and see these amazing people on screen together, and then I don't think I've heard a single soul talk about it since, and so I think this may be a little bit under the radar at this point. I mean, it's only a few years old, but man, I think this is really good stuff. I think Meryl Streep, of course, is amazing as always. And then you've got, the characters down the line who are doing really good work. Chris Pine among them. I was really surprised. So I love a good musical. So it's probably not a surprise that I would have this in my top 5. So Into the Woods.
Sweet sauce.
Yep.
My number 3, you might trump. I didn't even know if you can count this because it is adamantly proclaimed that she is not a witch, she's his wife. I'm gonna go with The Princess Bride.
That's why I didn't count. That's why I didn't have The Princess Bride in here because she's
she
not a witch.
she's his wife.
Specifically, the text says she's
Yeah.
not a witch. Yes, no, but I do not begrudge you including it, and I'm glad we get to talk about it. Anytime we can talk about The Princess Bride, I'm fine with that. It is
Yeah.
one of my favorite movies of all time.
Oh yeah, easily. The fact that I had 2 movies above it in my top 100 movies was shocking that had witches in it. But yeah, I didn't know if you would have it on your list because, like you said, it is adamantly and definitively proclaimed. I am not a witch. I'm your wife.
Yep, that is correct. So no, it's not on there.
Okay, so you're number 3.
My number 3 is actually it's been mentioned in the chat as well. My number 3 is The Wizard of Oz, which is in my favorite movies of all time. This is an interesting movie in that it wasn't as beloved when it came out as it is now. It's kind of been one of those that has grown over time. It is often one of the movies that people point to as the transition from black and white to color. I think we've talked about this recently, the fact that actually color film was along, way before this movie. It was just a matter of using it or not. In fact, very shortly after movies were invented, color film was invented. But I think the process was much more expensive.
I think it's the fact that this movie starts off in black and white or in that sepia, and then it transitions into color. So I think that's why people credit it, even though it's not true.
Yeah, because it uses color as part of the story, and I love that. I love when movies do that. Recently, First Man did that with the IMAX. Used the IMAX opening up as part of the story, and it works. It worked for me, at least. I've seen other movies and TV shows more recently do that with the dimensions of the screen. Certain things are 16:9, and certain things are, 4:3, or so I love it when storytelling can use visual things to indicate differences in the story. I think that's a lot of fun. Beyond that, it's just a really fun, again, musical. There's a theme going on here, but I really enjoy it. So yeah,
I do have a fun bit of trivia for you about the Wizard of Oz, and that it is that the entire movie is in fact all in color. It's just that parts of it take place in Kansas, and that's what Kansas really looks like.
Yeah,
it's just gritty and colorless. So
it is a pretty plain state, but I think there may be some Kansas peeps who may disagree with you. Kansanians who may disagree with you. What's your number 2?
I'm gonna go with Howl's Moving Castle.
Good choice in my honorable mentions.
Oh my gosh, it's my favorite Miyazaki movie. I'm just going to spoil right now. It's my favorite non-cheating witch movie. And by that, I mean, I really pushed the limits of a witch movie for my number 1. But I think the story is, if with any Miyazaki movie, you have to be open-minded and just let yourself be taken on a journey, because if you try and make sense of everything on your first go-around, you're going to be too overwhelmed with information, visuals, so much. But I think if you just let yourself enjoy what is happening in front of you, and then you go back and you watch it over and over again and you try and make sense, there's a beautiful and unique and really smart story going on here. I love both. I love this movie so much. I really do.
It's great. I'll go ahead and mention one of my honorable mentions is Kiki's Delivery Service, since kind of in the same vein there. But yeah, it's so beautiful, so well done, and yeah, I think it's worth mentioning for sure.
Yep. Your number 2.
My number 2 is Monty Python and the Search for the Holy Grail. Is my number 2. So it's good to always give a shout out to the Pythons.
Oh crap! It's a fair court.
Fair court.
Oh man, I totally forgot about Holy Grail. That would have made my
See,
top five.
unlike Princess Bride, the text in this movie says she might actually be a witch. So, there you go.
Yeah, I feel like a fool.
Nah, I don't feel like a fool. Just share my love of the Pythons. And
get out of here, Vivitch.
That's right.
You do not exist anymore.
Be gone with you.
Yeah.
Or fear the wrath of the rabbit. All right, we're on to our number ones then, right? I think. Yeah. Do we have the same number one? Possibly.
Probably not.
Okay. All right. What's your number one?
Avengers: Infinity War.
Okay.
Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch.
No, I know, but it doesn't mean she's not a witch.
This is what I said. This is why I said cheating. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that is definitely a cheat. But we'll go ahead and allow it.
Yeah.
Any chance you get to talk about Infinity War, you're going to take it.
I am. So, what did you have at number one? I'm actually really curious now.
Lord of the Rings is what I had at number one, which I assumed we both would have had at number one.
Oh, the Witch King of Agmon. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
man, I am bad at this game.
No, you're not. Yeah. No, you're not. It just all depends on where you draw that line and kind of how you do it. But I've spoken many times about my love for the Lord of the Rings. It's going to impact my pocketbook come this holiday season because they've got the new 4K Steelbook collections coming out for Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. I didn't like The Hobbit as much as Lord of the Rings, but just as a completist and a collector, I think I may have to get those too. I cannot wait. Apparently, they're going to have both the theatrical and extended editions on these 4K discs, and I cannot wait to watch these movies in 4K. It's going to be a ton of fun. So excited that that's coming out this year. But I love this movie. It's a defining movie in my movie fandom, and it always shall be.
And there's going to be at least one person in the chat who's like, "Well, which movie? They're all one movie." So,
that's right. Yeah, they just broke a single story up into 3 parts. Whereas the difference with The Hobbit is they stretched a single story into 3 parts. Notice the difference. So, yeah. All right, that'll do it for the best ever challenge. Before
we got honorable mentions.
Yeah, before we get into our honorable mentions, let's take a look at the chat, see if anybody's got anything in the chat that they want to mention. So, let's see. Stardust was mentioned in the chat. That's definitely one. Yep. That you can watch. Let's see, Bed Knobs and Broomsticks.
That was my second honorable mention. Yeah,
definitely a good choice there as well. Yep. Sword in the Stone.
Yep.
Madam Mim. It's a lot of fun.
Madam Mim.
So yeah, if you have any other choices, let us know what they are.
Okay, nice.
I have two. Two in your honorable mention. Go ahead.
Yeah, that were not mentioned previously. Hocus Pocus.
Yeah, I was going to say, you have to mention Hocus Pocus, right? I know you love that movie.
Yeah, it's a fun movie. And a movie that I don't think gets enough credit for being as good as it is. I'm going to go with The Crucible with Daniel Day-Lewis.
Nice. Good choice.
Yeah. Have you ever seen that one?
I have. Would we consider those witches or just accused of being witches?
Accused of being witches. I know, it's one of those.
Okay, Yeah. Just got to draw that line wherever you do.
Yeah.
Let's see. Chronicles of Narnia.
They could have been right. They could have been right.
They could have been. They could. I don't think that's the point of the story. I don't think the text would necessarily agree, but they could have been. Chronicles of Narnia. Wanted to mention that, especially the first one, Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. Really enjoy that. Of course, the Harry Potter movies. You can pick your favorite. Probably Order of the Phoenix for me.
Yeah.
Maleficent's pretty good. Thought I'd mention Maleficent. Another recent Arthur tale that I really liked was The Kid Who Would Be King. So I wanted to throw some love out there for that. And then I think Sleepy Hollow is a pretty good movie. So throw some love for Sleepy Hollow out there as well.
Which one? The animated one or the Johnny Depp one?
Oh, the Johnny Depp one.
Yeah.
That's the one I'm talking about.
I can never take that one seriously because they cast Christopher Walken as the Headless Horseman.
That's a fair point, yeah.
And I just, every single time I see him now, I just go, hi! Looking for my head.
I've lost my head.
Yeah.
For some reason, my Christopher Walken is
Sound like Count Dracula?
Is very much Count Dracula. So we should probably just move on. Let's finish out with our buried treasure for the day. Andrew, what is that one thing in any area of pop culture that you want to make sure that people know about?
You're going to be really happy about this, Aaron. I finally watched a show you've been praising for a while.
Oh, I hope you liked it.
Yep, on HBO. Well, I did like it. It's my buried treasure. I'm going to go with Barry on HBO.
Oh, nice.
This is a fun show. It's a fun show.
Yeah.
The reason why I saw the pilot when it came out, but I never watched anything after that, because I didn't know if I would really buy into Bill Hader as an assassin. But I still look at him and I can't think of him as an assassin, but I quickly realized that's not what the show is about, you know? And seeing him and just this amazing cast. I got to look up his name because he's also in Bill and Ted Face the Music. And he is so funny. Why am I bad at things?
You're fine. You're fine.
No, Anthony Carrigan as NoHo. He's like one of the funniest people ever. And then, of course, you got people like Henry Winkler and Stephen Root. I love Henry Winkler in this. He's just so great.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a really fun show. And I am kind of mad at myself for not really jumping on the show when it first came out. Because it deserved it, I think. It's really good.
Yep. I think this show is a really interesting watch because the way it plays with tones is treacherous. It is a hard thing to balance what they're balancing here in this show, and I think they do a really good job at it. Glad to see Bill Hader get kind of this chance to kind of stretch his wings, his muscles, and do something like this. So glad you're watching it. Fun. How far did you get?
I just finished season 1, so I'm about to start season 2.
You got some fun stuff in store for you, my friend.
Nice.
If you want some other fun stuff in store for you, I finally got around to watching the first season of Star Trek Lower Decks on CBS All Access.
Is it good?
It's great. It is not quite to the level of the Orville, but it's close. And the difference is it's actually in universe, and that gives them the opportunity to make more specific jokes. And do a great job. Best thing this show does is the character building. I really fell in love with these characters, and that's the concept is already fun. But when you give me characters that have very specific personalities, things they're trying to accomplish, that's always going to kind of keep me, invested. I believe one of the voices is Jack Quaid, who you may know from The Boys.
Yep.
And then I think Jerry O'Connell is in there as well.
It's an animated series, so of course Jerry O'Connell's going to be in it. He's a voice actor for everything.
Yeah, I really am enjoying Lower Decks. Or I should say I really enjoyed the first season of Lower Decks, so I wanted to pass that on. If you're a Star Trek fan, I think it's definitely something you at least want to experience because Star Trek has really never done anything like this as far as in-universe, in canon kind of thing. And it takes place during like Next Generation years. And so
my favorite.
So there are some kind of fun cameos that happen as well. So just to tease that for Star Trek Lower Decks.
Well, now that I have one recommendation for it, I'll check it out.
Nice. That's all you needed. Just needed the one recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we did it, man.
Yeah, we did.
We did another podcast. Congratulations on your successful podcasting day. It doesn't always happen that way, but it happened that way today. So
we should celebrate with some onions.
We should. We should get a nice big bag of onions and celebrate. So, thank you so much for joining us today. SIFT Pop is part of the Studio DNA Podcast Network. You can find out more about other shows on the network at studiodna.media or by searching Studio DNA in your podcast player. Huge thanks to Andrew for hanging out today.
Thank you, buddy.
Yeah, thank you. Huge thanks to producer Phil for producing the video and audio show.
Thanks, Phil.
And much love and gratitude to our SIFT Pop members at Patreon for making this possible. Support starts at $3 a month. You can check out all the details at patreon.com/SIFTPop. Lots of ways to connect with us. Feel free to comment, rate, leave a review at Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to the podcast. or wherever you watch the podcast. Feel free to interact there as well. We are now a Twitch affiliate, so you can subscribe there. So plenty of ways to interact with the show, and we appreciate everybody at every single one. You can also just email us if you still do that kind of thing. Feedback@siftpop.com. And finally, if you're having a good time, your movie-loving friends will probably like it too, so let them know about it, and that listening is much easier than killing a global pandemic virus with a frying pan. We will be back next week with more good stuff. There's plenty of stuff out. We didn't talk about Rebecca this week. That came out on Netflix this week, so lots of fun stuff coming out. I think there was a new animated movie on Netflix too, so 'tis the season, and we'll surely have something to chat about next week, and we will see you then.
Bye.
Thank you to our video viewers. We appreciate you hanging out with us. I hope the Twitch thing can be figured out. If you know Twitch and you want to help these old boomers figure out how to, what's funny is neither one of us are boomers. I'm Gen X. You're probably like a millennial, aren't you? Like, how young are you?
34.
Yeah, I think you're right on the cusp of kind of that millennial generation.
Yeah. If Gen Y is technically a thing, then I'm Gen Y, but I don't think it's a real thing.
Who knows? That doesn't matter. What matters is we need help with the Twitch thing. So if you know kind of how that works, please let us know. We want to make sure it's set up for the best experience on Twitch, and we really do appreciate the support there as well. I know that's one of the things about the Twitch environment. It's a very generous environment, and thank you for that. It means the world to us. But yeah, if you have any questions, now's the time. We kind of keep this open for a few extra minutes. We are going to record a SIFT spoil that will not be live video. That will just be audio on the podcast feed. So you'll be able to check that out, and that will be on Borat subsequent movie film. So we will do that. So yeah, if you have any questions that you want to ask wherever you are, we can pop those up on screen and answer them. Sonic Screwdriver says, Pepsi told me I was Generation Next. That's not actually a thing. So just wanted to clear that up. Yes. Give them a few more seconds for questions, just to kind of pop up in the chat. The other thing I would say is it is important to note if you do support what goes on as a member, that you do have your own specific podcast feed that where the bonus podcasts pop up. And sometimes people don't realize that, and they feel like they have to go to the Patreon to listen. And you're welcome to. It's a post there. You can listen to it. But there is an RMS feed in your upper right-hand corner of your membership page that you can plug into any podcast player that you use. And it should pull up the bonus podcast feed for SIFT Pop. So just so you know that, you're able to do that as well. I learned something this week, Andrew, before we go. I learned I need to make sure my heat doesn't kick on during the podcast in this tiny little room, because it becomes an oven in here very quick. So I think I just need to turn it on eco mode.
Well, you have like, what, 4 computers running in there or something as well?
Lights, computers. Production studio gets hot. Hot. Lollipop Shoe says, what's your Halloween TV show? Have either of you watched Monsterland? No to the second question.
Yeah. Halloween TV show. True Blood, I think.
Interesting.
I really do like True Blood.
I'm going to say X-Files.
Yeah, that's a good pick too.
But, it's kind of creepy.
Yeah. X-Files would be a really good pick. I think that's a really good one.
Jay Bourgeois says, what was the last movie before Borat that was in the news this much beyond the normal movie news stuff? I mentioned First Man earlier. Had a kind of a political thing happen to it in the news before it came out with made this astronaut movie but didn't put any American flags in it. And there was like that whole thing. Even then I watched it and there were a bunch of American flags in it. And
probably, honestly, Sonic. For the fact that they changed the CGI.
Sonic. Yep, Sonic's a good choice. Sonic's a good choice. In the chat, mentioning Halloween TV shows, Garth Marenghi's Dark Place. Got a shout out. So, worth mentioning there. Okay, well, that'll wrap it up. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you hanging out wherever you do. And we will see you next week here on the show.
Bye.
Bye.